So, hello, dear listeners. This is Spiritual Alchemy with Astrid, and this time it's not just Astrid. I'm quite sure this is making you happy that you don't have to deal only with me again, and you don't have to just listen to my rant for an hour. And this time I have a very special, one of my favorite guests, and that's Jason Miller. Hi, Jason. How are you today?
Hi, Astrid. I'm doing great. How are you?
Oh, I'm absolutely smashing. Today was hot, so I'm a bit boiling. But apart from that, everything seems to be fine. Please let me know in the chat. I'm currently going in a chat on the Parax Radio Network if everybody can hear me fine and well. And I'm going to actually introduce this show a little bit. So, why is Jason Miller today on this show, and why the topic of the show is how to be a sorcerer in the 21st century? What the hell is doing and being a sorcerer in the 21st century? So that just to give idea to the people who don't know that much about magic, or just maybe are just hermetic, or maybe are just spiritual. What is so hard about being sorcerer in the 21st century? So let me paint this picture for you. You decided to do some sort of a magic, and because you're a sorcerer, the only source that you can find is an ancient grimoire from 15th century. You can find it, it's on eBay. You find it on eBay, it costs $1,000. You get it shipped to your place. God damn it, it's in Coptic. You can't speak Coptic. So you get a fine, an English translation, if that's what you can read. You are very excited, you got your English translation, you go for it. God damn it, it asks for a bad blood. It's illegal to get a bat, it's illegal to kill a bat. You can get for a prison for that. So where the hell you are getting a bad blood? Okay, so let's say you got the bad blood. Maybe you know Ozzy Osbourne. Maybe you just got it. Let's not go too much deep in where you got the bad blood from. So you got the right planetary minute, you got the right planetary second, you got all the tools, you got all the chalks, you have all the stuff you need, basically a whole trunk of a car of stuff and tools you need. You have it all, it's the right time, you did it, you feel like Ibra Magi, and bam, your kid comes in. Hey, Daddy, I can't find Mr. Chuckles. I can't sleep without Mr. Chuckles. And your ritual is over. So we can see from this little example that modern sorcerer in 21st century is facing, let's say, new challenges that were not foreseen in the 15th century. And that's the reason why Jason Miller is today here, because he decided that it's time to take the sorcery with the same results, but take it in the 21st century. So let me tell you just something a little bit before I'm actually leaving talking to Jason. A little bit now about him. Everybody knows Jason Miller. That's the first thing you have to know about him. Everybody knows Jason Miller. If you don't know Jason Miller, you have to read on Jason Miller. Everybody knows Jason Miller. So Jason Miller has devoted nearly 30 years to studying practical magic in its many forms. He started very young. He's author of notoriously famous books, Protection and Reversal Magic, The Sorcerer's Secret, Sex Sorcery. We are not going to talk about sex sorcery today, so if that's the reason why you're listening, get a cold shower, come back. And Spirit, Financial Sorcery, and he also ran the Strategic Sorcery training course and Take Back Your Mind course and the Sorcery Hecate program, which is online courses, technology, 21st century, yay! He also lived with his extremely beautiful wife and super cute children in the New Jersey Pine Barrens, and you can find him on www.strategicsorcery.net. So that was overly long and overly excited introduction to this show. And now I'm going to let Jason Miller to talk. So Jason, $1 million question, how to bring sorcery to 21st century?
Wow. I have to wonder if the problem of the kids losing Mr. Chuckles was not always a concern, no matter what century. But the answer is, of course, that sorcery never really went away. It changes, and we like to. The 20th century threw some babies out with the bathwater as far as ignoring all the classical grimoires like the 15th century or, the Coptic text in your example. And then in the turn of the millennium, we started looking at those again, and people started doing harder research into the grimoires, and Jake's research into traditional Goetia and the Papyri Greciae Magicae. And now we've thrown away everything in the 20th century, like it was all a mistake. And that, too, is throwing the baby out with the bathwater. So the first thing to do, I would say, is look for the continuity. Look for the thread of unbroken practice of magic as it exists. Not just in the English-speaking world, not just in Europe, but everywhere. And it's not hard to find. You know, it's not difficult to pick that up. And then it is a matter of embracing revelation and research as their own beautiful things that occasionally intersect, but certainly need not conflict or be wary of one another. So what I mean by that, there's a lot of people who are wonderful scholars, and they're amazing researchers. But for them, everything has to have a primary source that is old, that is ancient. If it's not old, it's crap. And if somebody didn't write it 200, 300, 1,000 years ago, it's garbage. And the thing is, it was new back then. It was revelation back then. It was cutting edge back then. So there's nothing different about things that are cutting edge now. But now, on the other side of the coin, you have people that maybe they have an authentic connection to the spirits, and the spirits reveal something to them, or maybe they're using their own ingenuity to come up with something, and they turn to the research and say, well, none of that matters, because I have a new revelation. The spirit told me, and my spirit contact outweighs your fancy book learning. And or just the basic idea of, you know, how dare you contradict what my inner spirituality is. So my attitude is revelation is wonderful, and research is wonderful, and they should each be treated with respect, and you shouldn't twist one to fit the other. There are some people who want to twist revelation so that it fits in with what we know currently of history, and that's always an important thing, that our understanding of history is always changing. And then people that want to twist history to fit whatever their revelation is. We saw a lot of this in the 20th century with the emergence of Wicca, and some stories behind, the origin of, say, the OTO as having origins in Tantra and all this kind of stuff that is pretty easily debunked. So we want to respect revelation, we want to respect research, we want to respect processes, and when these things overlap, then great, let's throw a party, let's have a celebration that revelation and research are in line, and when they're not, let's celebrate the differences and see what we come up with, and how it works, and whether it works well, and what exactly it does. That's the other argument that people have, is, well, it worked, so therefore I am unassailable. And that's not really adequate either, because what does quote it worked mean? Did you get the feelies during the ritual, or did it did it actually have an effect on someone somewhere? Did you hear a spirit voice in your head, and did it say something useful? It's not just did you have spirit contact. I once transcribed a pretty lengthy message from a spirit that wanted me to publish it, and I looked at it and I was like, no, because if this is true, no one's going to believe it until it's too late, and if it's not true, then this is garbage, and basically there's no point to any of this. and everything the Spirit said came to not pass at all. So I was glad that I held back on that. But I guess, the big thing is with the old sorcery and the new sorcery is there is no such thing, and just there is always an ongoing dance between revelation and research. And in the best stuff, research sparks revelation, which then sparks further research, and vice versa. So I hope that was a sensible answer to that question. It might have been a little weird.
No, absolutely. You actually touched something that I wanted to also ask you, and that you mentioned that obviously that people seems to be nowadays coming to this idea that, okay, I can't get legally Batbot unless I know Ozzy Osbourne. So, fudge it all. I'm going to get the Starbucks cup. Yeah, all magic with the Starbucks cup and Coca-Cola bottle. I can do the same stuff. This is not going to any chaos group in particular, but it seems to me like it's going from one extreme to another. So let's say, what would you recommend those people that are like sitting there, like, I don't know if I want to do the bad blood or the Starbucks cups. I don't know. I don't like either of this. What would you recommend?
So, when there was a time when I considered myself a chaos magician, and then there was a time when I was very, very hard on chaos magicians for reasons like that. And now I'm sort of, I have a great deal of respect for, I think Jake called them what did he say? Like the process first, or the training first chaos magicians. Like Gordon White and Tommy Kelly, and so on. And so I have a lot of respect for the work that they do. And they're not running out and just going like, okay, if we want to do a wealth ritual, let's get Scrooge McDuck, and basically just doing it silliness for the sake of silliness to say that you can. There's a certain amount of sacredness. So I have a saying that I'll be expanding upon in my next book, and it's a two-part saying. One is that everything matters. So if the spell calls for bat's blood, then the bat's blood matters, and not having it will have an effect. So everything matters. But that doesn't mean you need everything. So in other words, everything matters, but that doesn't mean that everything is vital. Like everything in a car matters. If I'm in my car, everything matters. But if the radio goes, the car still drives. If the air conditioning goes, the car still drives. It's just a less nice of a trip. Some things are vital, some things are not. And then some things you can replace them with something else. So if suddenly gasoline doesn't become available and I'm able to convert the engine to, the bio diesel or something like that, where I can fill up at the McDonald's from fryer oil, then, that's a solution. So there is this terrible attitude where people, once again, they run to the extremes. It's like, if I am not doing it exactly as they said in the book, and I call this temporal appropriation. I'm trying to start a new type of social justice outrage. Temporal appropriation. You're appropriating things from the past. And what's worse is those people are dead. You don't get much more oppressed than dead. This kind of if it said it in the book that it's absolutely necessary, we need to have it that way. There are actually not that many people who really adhere to things that strongly. I can think of really one or two. So sometimes people paint like grimoire purists and include everybody that's working on the grimoires, but it's not the case. It's not really like that. There's a lot of innovation going on in that scene, and then there are some very conservative people, just like there are people who didn't want to do everything Crowley said as Holy Writ. But then on the other hand, we have then, well, nothing matters and everything is permitted, so woohoo, I'm just gonna, and if your spell takes more than my 30-second attention span, then I'm just not interested. So, I have a course called Sorcery of Hecate, and it's got a requirement that you say a chant 100 times a day. Now, you don't have to do any ritual. I mean, ideally, you'll be doing the whole ritual and you'll be deeply involved. But the bare minimum, like to keep the thread of practice going day to day to day, is to say the chant, Io Heka, Io Ho, 100 times. That's like 5 minutes, right? The amount of shit that people get, like, I can't do, like, oh my God. Now, I'm not talking about the people that miss a day, because I miss a day occasionally too. And there's always something for when you miss a day. But the people that, like, revolt against that as, like, an unnecessary and absolutely just draconian asking of them, like, I'm asking for 5 minutes of their day. It's like, how dare
you're not my dad.
Right. So, I mean, in the end, once people join the course, it's not really a big deal. The course is on the expensive end of what I offer. So, generally speaking, people that have that much skin in the game don't have a problem spending a few minutes in it. But as it's going around, people are, I get pushback on that sometimes, and I'm just like, really? It's 5 minutes? Like, it's like, I'm not even telling you to meditate. That was the other big thing is in my strategic sorcery course and in my books, I always tell people to meditate, and like the people that fight me on that, it's really like, woo, man. I mean, and don't get me wrong, meditation is everything magicians hate. We want to stand up, we want to draw pentagrams in the corners, we want to wave the tools around, and meditation says sit down and shut up. And we want to have visions, we want to speak to the spirits, we want to see things in the crystals, and meditation says ignore the visions. If the Buddha appears, just tell him to fuck off, you're meditating. So, it's sort of anti-magic, but it's important mind training nonetheless, that really helps you parse things out in the mind when you're actually in the thick of it and progressing in magic. So, that's my mini rant. What was the question again?
We actually, that absolutely beautifully bridged me to the question, and that is, you're talking about a short attention span. And obviously, that's one of the things that I believe technology is not helping to improve, to put it mildly. Internet is turning on, let's face it, all of us, and especially in the younger generation, it's like click, click, bam, bam. If I'm not seeing cool stuff within 20 seconds, I'm bored. It's just like, internet is not helping us to get a longer attention span and basically turning us all into goldfish. And so that's one of the, I would say, pitfalls that definitely is going to affect the 5 minutes. That's like ages, like dinosaurs lived and died in internet, in internet's time in 5 minutes. So obviously, like 5 minutes. But that's one of the pitfalls of the internet generations. But what do you think, like, where this is going to head in the future? Do you think, like, the magic will have to adjust to that shorter span, or people will somehow find a different ways how to work with internet and sorcery in the future?
Oh, man, I'm sorry. I didn't listen to half of what you said because I was watching this Cody Frost video that just came on YouTube, and I couldn't, you lost me there in the middle of it. No, I'm kidding, of course. I wasn't watching a Cody Frost video. I was watching porn in that. No. So, talk about the dangers of the internet, right?
I don't want to even know how many people are simultaneously listening to our show and watching porn. There's like there is a couple thousand people listening, at least one. There's always one is watching porn, I'm sure. Switch it up.
It's safe bet. I'd say. But anyway, no. I on the one hand, it is of course taking our attention span away, but there is, on the other hand, people have complained about this since the invention of the telephone. And in fact, if you go back to, when America and Europe was setting the first telephone infrastructure, where people would be able to have telephones, there are articles in the paper about how it's going to destroy people's attention spans, how you're going to lose the quaintness of riding and going to see your neighbor, and it's going to destroy society as we know it. And we compensate. And yeah, I mean, the attention span today is not what it was before the telephone. And, when telephone and then TV, and then that was the big bugaboo. And now it's people don't even have the patience to watch a whole television show. And, I'm 44, so I'd love to be like the old, these kids today guy, but I'll be the first one that, fast forwards through the slow parts of a show. So, and I meditate every day. But I guess the thing is that on the one hand, we're losing some attention span, but on the other hand, we're learning to process information faster. Our brains can think and process things so fast that if we let them, and the amount of information that we have at our fingertips, and that even not in our fingertips, that gets shoved down our throats every day, is just staggering. So we're learning to process it faster. So if we do a few simple things to take back our attention span, then we can do this. So in my Take Back Your Mind program, I have a three-pronged approach. So one of them is traditional meditation, like sit every day, 20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes in the early evening if you can. If you can only do one session a day, then do that. So that's the one that pretty much everyone will tell you to do. And you can also turn your smartphone as a tool for that. You can use, I don't like meditation apps because for me, meditation has to become part of your mind, part of your mental processes. And if it comes from an app, then that itself becomes a barrier. But still in all, some people like the apps at least to get started. So Headspace, Calm, these are apps that people use for this. The other two prongs, though, one of them is what I call mindful moments. You take whatever your meditation practice is, breath meditation, focusing on a point in space, chant, whatever it is, and throughout the day, whenever you get a chance, 1 to 3 minutes, practice that. You don't have to be sitting. You can be in line at Starbucks. You can be in the bathroom at work. Wherever it is, you take that cushion time practice. You make that. It's like a little ripple to just get you from one session to the next, and it extends the effect of the meditation out. And then the last pillar is actually idle time. I gave a talk at Phalasis Lodge in Philadelphia, which was started in my apartment 20 years ago. And this was, the internet was there, but there was not a ton on it like there is today. And I didn't have a computer at the time, and we all called each other. But there was idle time. You would sit, and maybe there'd be music on in the background, and you just put your feet up and you'd chill for a little bit. Or you'd be standing in line at Starbucks with nothing to distract you, so you're just sitting and waiting. There were all these moments of boredom that are actually essential. They're like stopping points. They're breathing points for the mind. So you have to take those back too, where there's not even a structured meditation, just time to let the mind relax and go. Gurdjieff was very hip to this, where he had people doing manual labor to keep their bodies occupied, but they didn't have a podcast on in the background, or they weren't listening to teachings. Their attention was left to be free, so that whatever their meditation practices and all these other spiritual practices that occupy their mind and clear it and purify it, it then has a chance to kind of bubble up and be free and move a little bit. So those three things, I think, are really important for reestablishing a healthy attention span in the age of internet distraction and non-stop exposure.
Like me personally, this is how I was like always like when I really don't like those meditation apps. So like I always like loud eye roll. Like that's the thing. It's like everybody's like, I need a meditation app. I'm like, go and do some manual labor. You sound like somebody who desperately needs manual labor. Like go and plant some trees. That would be my mother approach, and I'm really grateful. Like she was raised that way. Like when you go too crazy with technology, yeah, go do some manual work. But with the internet, obviously, it also brings on opportunities. We have things like internet covens, which is obviously not something that was happening 15 years ago when there is like people in a different part of the world, and but you also are teaching stuff online. It kind of obviously that's not the traditional lineage when you're sitting in a monastery and you're having some like really long row from very unpleasant fabric, and you're teaching the others from old parchment books, and you have this online teaching courses. So what type of prejudice or what was the like general public reaction? Were they like, yeah, internet, or was it like, nah, it's not in an old leather book, we don't like it? Like, what was your like reactions? Like, did somebody like reacted negatively?
Well, it's funny you brought up the old leather book. I have had people, kind of somebody will give them one of my books or be forced to read it. A friend will be like, you need to read this. And so I have occasionally over the years gotten these comments from people like, I read your book and I was really surprised that I liked it. Maybe you should try to get published by a more reputable publisher, i.e. someone that publishes a very expensive hardbound version of your book that there will only be 70 of, and they will be bound in unicorn scrotum, and, the pages will be inked in basilisk tears. So it's, I love those books too. So first of all, one of my good friends, not just through the internet, but somebody that I know and partied with back in the day, is Urs from Haitian Press, and I also have my fair share of Scarlet Imprint and Zoanon, and I was an early adopter of Andrew Chumley, who I think we can blame all these expensive book things on. So it's a mode of publishing that I respect, but at the same time, it's sort of like, well, no, I wanted the books to be available for $10 to $15, and I wanted them to be published and available at, Walmart and Barnes and Noble, and to get normal distribution. So that was my plan. So there is sort of a bias against stuff. The internet, I didn't get so much of a bias or a problem from people through teaching on the internet as I did about charging for it. But even then, it wasn't tremendous. And what I do is I point them over to folks like the Tibetan Buddhists. I took a walk one day in 1993 in early 2000 with John Reynolds, Lama Vajranatha, and Mathieu Ricard. I was just reminded of this because I just read an article calling Mathieu the happiest person in the world. And I took a walk, and we were looking at this 3D mandala in in the monastery where Dogo Kensei taught, and we got to talking about basically the potential to lay out the meditations and teach people using 3D imagery and computer graphics and virtual reality and stuff. So they were kind of hip to it. And even now, Garchen Rinpoche, who is as traditional kind of as they come, I mean, Tibetan-born, did his time in Chinese prison, he gives empowerments online. Not just transmissions, not just teachings. I mean, he gives empowerments. Like, you watch this and you should consider yourself empowered to do the practice. He would be the first to say that you should come and do it live if you can, which says to me that there is an element missing. And they're having attended, hundreds of empowerments live, I can say there certainly is. There's an element of what Tibetans call chinlong, the physical transfer of that power that I don't think goes through the net. But the sound is there, the transmission through sound, the transmission through sight, the transmission through the knowledge itself. And really we get down to, what do you value? For me, I'll take someone who does work every day and doesn't have the cleanest or any initiatory lineage over somebody who has a perfect, a very exalted lineage that they can point to and say, yes, I was, bonked on the head by so-and-so and tied up and whipped by so-and-so, and, they were tied up and whipped by somebody else and bonked on the head by somebody else, and going back to whoever it is that they value. I'll take the person who does the work over the person with the cool initiations any day of the week. Whenever I meet people and they kind of brag, they say, oh, I've been practicing for X amount of years. And I'll do this myself because now I'm approaching 30 years of practice. So I'll be like, I've been practicing for 30 years. But it's really not, it's not the years. It's the hours, right? It's the hours. People can go decades just reading books and wearing pentagrams and being in the scene and attending festivals, and not really doing much of anything. And then there are people who are young and hungry and, and take whatever they can and grab at it and get to work with it. And they're the folks that'll get the results.
Then also, you've been talking about the money a little bit. It seems like, and that's not just an occult, but I'm also finding it even in New Age and Wicca, witchcraft, all those different esoteric groups. I would say there is a major problem with understanding of money. It seems to me like everybody is doing money spells, but when they are talking about money, they're like, oh, bleh, that devil's invention. Put some holy water in your mouth. It would be talking, but then everybody's like, shh, have money spells, because everybody's broke. So come on, make the hell, make your mind. So what's your stand on it? It's like, is it money? Is it helpful? Is it devil's invention? What is it? What is it in occult and spirituality?
Oh man, well, this is my topic. The book that I am most proud of is not one of my best-selling books because people don't want to hear the real-world issues about money. They want the give me a spell to win the lottery. But I am passionate about the money issue, and so when I was coming up, there were a lot of teachers that I knew, and they had day jobs, or they didn't have day jobs, and they were just kind of hippie-ish. But money and materialism was just bad. It was like a holdover from the hippie era, and also then the idea of simony from Christian upbringing. That money should not, ordinations shouldn't be given for money, and so on. Yet the plate gets passed around and the churches get funded, so money's important. And then you have, just this watching some of my teachers get older, and some important authors get older, and they're not able to go around and teach, and they're not able to do with the shoestring budget anymore. And, they're having to basically put out these missives like, hey, if anybody can help me afford my medicine or keep my heat on. It's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking. So when I decided that I wanted to teach, my attitude was, fuck that. I'm going to get paid. Now, unlike some other people that bemoan not getting paid because they were a pagan priest or they were, just an elder and so cool that they should get paid, my attitude is, if you're going to get paid for something, then you have to work. You have to produce value. So, I view it as a job and whatnot. But in general, in the community, my attitude is this. Is your spirituality non-materialist? Like, is being non-materialist a part of your spiritual makeup? If so, shit or get off the pot. Get yourself to a monastery. Get yourself to a nunnery. Here in New Jersey, we have a wilderness survivalist training program, world class. Come on to Jersey, learn how to live in the woods so you too can be a wandering homeless yogi who just lives off, rabbits and berries and has no need. You can be completely off the grid. Tim Brown's school. He teaches some amazing stuff. So, if you're not gonna do that, then you have a choice. Because if you're not gonna do that, then money is going to be a part of your life, right? It's gonna be there. It's the elephant in the room. And so you either master it or it masters you. Money is too important and too volatile in life, too key and central to how everything works to just ignore. So it's a matter of you're going to have to get a handle on it, or it's going to get its handle on you. And if it gets its handle on you, that's when your spirituality is in danger. That's when you're taking clients that you wouldn't ordinarily take and doing things you wouldn't ordinarily do because you're in financial danger because you're not watching, you're too spiritual to pay attention to your bottom line. That's when you're spending 50 hours a week working at some dead-end job because you don't want a career. You're just sort of, working a gig and not concerned about money. You're not that into money, right? So my attitude is make it part of your spiritual path or don't. But if you're not going to, then get serious about it. And if you are going to, then get serious about it. So if you're going to get serious about it, then you should get serious about making money. Now, you don't have to shoot to be, a Wall Street hedge fund, 7-figure, 8-figure, 9-figure, 10-figure lord of the world. Those people, money is central to their life. I'm not saying make money central to your life. I'm saying make money part of your spirituality so that your bottom line is covered and that you have some amount of freedom and autonomy. And I'm really, really passionate about that. It's what I like to teach. It's when people give me field reports or testimonials, those are the ones that I love to put up. And sometimes maybe people will roll their eyes and like, oh, here's another person that made 6-figure salary or is claim, someone recently just got their art installation covered in a magazine using some of the tech from one of my courses. And I think sometimes people will be like, here's another one of these goofy field reports. But I am so incredibly proud of students' work when they work it and succeed like this. It makes me so happy for them and their lives and the work that we do. So,
Just out of curiosity, which one of your books is the best-selling one? Is it the sex sorcery one?
No, actually, that is the worst-selling one at all. That is the worst one. And I kind of knew that would be the case, actually.
Really?
Yeah, I did. First of all, I wanted to write it because I had something to say about the place of inner heat and sex magic. And I had something to say about the path of sex and sovereignty, bringing East and West together, really bringing Eastern and Western tech together, as opposed to pretending that's the case in some areas of the past, and really making it accessible to people. And then also, putting some fun stuff towards the end as far as experimental stuff or fetishy kind of stuff that people can play with. So it was a fun book for me to write, and I had an important message, and I'm getting to teach about it at the OTO in Baltimore on Saturday, so that's really cool. But it is not the bestseller. What the world needs right now in sex magic are transgender people, gay and lesbian people, bisexual people, both unearthing and bringing to light some of the practices that had to remain super secret in the past, and also, putting forth their experimentation, their innovation, and what they're finding, not just in terms of sacred sex, but in sex magic. So that's kind of what the world needs as far as sex magic book to move the world forward. Obviously, I am not the guy to write those books, being a cisgendered heterosexual male. I'm sort of in the privileged trifecta. So I knew that would be not a huge seller, and just it was something I wanted to say. It was not necessarily like the world needs me to, but the bestseller is Protection and Reversal Magic. Still.
Oh, interesting.
10 years old this spring, and it still hovers around like the 50,000 mark on Amazon.
Yay!
So it's been translated now into Polish, Russian, Spanish. It's definitely the most popular book as far as the best selling. So the book that sells the best is Protection and Reversal Magic. The book that has done the most for me is The Sorcerer's Secrets, because that's what my course kind of takes off from there. And the book that I'm the most proud of is Financial Sorcery.
I'm actually looking at the Protection and Reversal Magic and Sorcerer's Secret right now. I have them over there in my on my bookshelves. Great books. If our listeners are interested, go to the nearest Barnes and Nobles. I'm quite sure they have it. I've seen them all around the States. But the sex sorcery this makes yet another beautiful bridge to another question. And that is what to do with the kids and sorcery. It's quite weird bridge, but hey, it's a bridge to a question.
That's where they come from.
Yeah, that's where they come from. It's like, oh my God, Jason, what if somebody's now listening who didn't know that? It's like, no.
Then they are too young to be listening to this podcast.
It's like if somebody was so young that they didn't know that, they most likely ran and screaming when we were talking about killing the bats. So,
right.
What to do with the kids? Like how to combine family life? Like obviously, most of the sorcerers have either husband or wife. It's like, should you tell your wife or husband? And what about the kids? What's your recipe for that as you being a family man?
Well, I can only speak for myself. So what I have done is I use the terms basically nothing is hidden, but nothing is really brought to their attention either. And it's remarkable. My daughter has an art desk that's right next to like all my books, and she never really looks at the witchcraft books and stuff like that. I don't think she's even, I mean, she reads fantastically. She's read 5 of the Harry Potter books, 4 of the Harry Potter books, but she just, it's like they're self-censoring in a way. So we talk about Buddhism. A great trick is, if you say that you're a Buddhist, you can do anything, and it's okay with the world. If you like, we're doing Vajrakalaya practice, right? Where you're literally making a dummy out of dough of this demon whose arms and legs are bound behind it. It could be a person, it could be a demon, it could be a spirit, and then you're staking it to a triangle, and you're using a purba, 3-sided ritual knife, and you're chanting, and you stab it and release it, and quote unquote liberate it in Buddhist terms, i.e. kill it and bring it to, you're forcing its rebirth, as a fancy way to put it. Like, I'm not killing you, I'm forcing rebirth, early rebirth.
That's okay, kids. That is a Buddhist.
Yes. So if you did this, like, and called it witchcraft, everyone would be like, oh my God, like, oh, but it's Buddhist. Like, everyone at your workplace would be like, oh, the Dalai Lama is so holy. I love it. It's so great that you have this interest. That you could do anything. Like, seriously, there are Buddhist texts where you're doing your retreat under an umbrella made of human skin. It's just like, oh, but it's Buddhism, so it's okay. So obviously I also intersect with Christianity and the saints. So there's a lot of Marys, and specifically the feast of Sarah La Kali is coming up. Jesse Hathaway was kind enough to bring me back a statue of Sarah La Kali last year. So this is my first year to go and take her to the beach and cleanse her in the water on the 24th, coming up this week. So, all these things are here, and they take part in, like, incense offerings to the spirits in the morning. I let them come out. They like to pour the libation on the ground. They like to wave the incense. They like to meditate a little bit. My daughter likes to meditate a little bit, for like 5 minutes at a time, because they're 7, so it's young. But we don't start talking about spells or anything like that yet. And it's one of those things where if they ask, then I'll answer, and if not, then that's totally fine. And it's not a part of my life where it would be different, I think, if I was, say, Wiccan by religion. Then, of course, I want them celebrating the year with me and so on. But as for sorcery and magic and whatnot, I mean, all these things are magic. Offerings are magic, and prayers are a type of magic as well. But, we introduce these things as spirituality. And it's amazing what the power of a word is to kind of reframe everything. So at the moment, we let them in on these little things, and they're happy, and I'm happy, and it's all very good. As they get older, if they show a strong interest, then of course I'll train them. When they're in their teens, I'll teach them to read cards. I started learning when I was 15. But if they don't ask, then it's not something where I feel strongly that they have to do it. You know what I mean? Because it's such a weird thing to be, right? And I'm lucky that I was able to eke out a career and a good paying career that I can support a family on in middle class America. But it's kind of a weird. It's something where if you don't have the calling, the passion pulling you on, probably, better to be a doctor or something like that, or something else the world might need.
Like lots of the kids obviously are exposed to Harry Potter. So do you think that Harry Potter and the fact that the kids are reading Harry Potter is going to make the easier for the parents to explain, like, look, mommy and daddy are just like those characters? So do you think it's making it worse or easier?
They definitely know that, if I say Lumos and a light comes on, it's because I'm holding my Samsung phone. And, Google has voice recognition. If you tell it Lumos, the flashlight will come on your phone.
Seriously?
Oh, yeah. Like, hit your Google voice recognition and tell it Lumos, and the flashlight comes on, and you tell it Nox, and the light will go on. But otherwise, they know that the kind of flashy, vulgar magic kind of stuff is, Dad's not flying on a broom or playing Quidditch or anything. And I as a teacher, I love those books, and I love other books about magic, but I love other books that are not about magic, which is something that's a whole other topic that people need to broaden their horizons a little bit. But I feel strongly that those things be kept separate from what we do, because what we do is so subtle already. When someone is asking intercession of a spirit or seeking messages from a spirit or omens or interpreting cards or something like that, this is a subtle art. And if you're not careful, fantasy can take over, even in what you think you're hearing from a spirit. So when people's magical practice becomes like, I've taken the alphabet from Skyrim and made it my magical alphabet, I kind of cringe, not just for the, that's really like goofy kind of judgmental way, but for a way that's sort of like, it's not that healthy to mix the streams like that necessarily.
And what do you think about family rituals, like the kids and wives or husbands? Do you think it can be like a good for, let's say, mending the family together, or you think it's a recipe for disaster?
Oh no! I mean, family rituals are wonderful. But what are they for? Are they seasonal rituals, like pagan rituals that you're doing together? Then wonderful. And again, when I should clarify, when I'm speaking about like parenting and how I handle this is how I'm choosing to handle it. I'm not sitting in judgment of parents that handle it differently one way or the other. It's hard enough without that level of thing. But family rituals can be wonderful. And so we do a lot of rituals that are around the Christian calendar. We do a lot of rituals and offerings that are around the Buddhist calendar, some other things on the pagan calendar. But I'm not involving the kids in, say, spell work for clients, or I'm not teaching the kids, like, do this spell to get an A, and to I'm not teaching the kids, place her in this curricula triangle and she'll give you a better grade. So I'm not teaching like spell work or doing family spells. It's a different thing. Celebratory, bringing together, healing, pacification, blessings, happiness. All of these are wonderful things, and it's great if they can be done in community. You know, so much of magic, especially when we get into indigenous cultures and in the way that the Western occult scene interacts with magic from cultures where it's practiced more openly and more as part of a communal experience. People forget that. So people forget that, you know, there's a real like community involvement around Orisha worship or voodoo or you know, even Kimbanda and around Buddhist celebrations and things like this. But when you come from a Western occult background, it's very, you know, it's sort of very private. It's something you do. It's something you do in secret. And so it's easy to forget that it's not you in front of your altar with all these things. It often involves lots of other people, some of whom are trained and some of whom are congregants. So, you know, it's you know, that level, like making the family, the community can be a beautiful thing. But it's all about, you know, what are we involving with it? Like I would not be involving my 7-year-olds in necromantic rites or something.
Not yet.
Not yet.
So that show is slowly coming to an end. So that was Jason Miller recommending definitely families doing rituals together. The more magic in your family, the less divorces. Yay! Switch off the TV. Do some nice ritual, preferably necromantic with your kids, at least teenagers. Joking, kind of. So, Jason, before we go, can you tell our listeners who I'm sure they absolutely loved you as always. Can you please tell us when they can find you, when they can find your online courses, when they can buy your books?
Go to strategicsorcery.net and you're going to find there's a link for a newsletter there that I started a couple months ago called the Inominandum Memorandum. It's perhaps an unpronounceable newsletter, but you'll love to read it anyway. And it's in there that you'll see, like, kind of get the news for what I'm up to most recently. You'll get, you know, the information on when courses are starting. Some of them are like Strategic Sorcery and Take Back Your Mind. You can join at any time. They're automated. You can just enroll whenever. Things like Sorcery of Hecate and Level Up courses are seasonal, so you can only join those, you know, twice a year when they open up. And then when the doors close, they are shut, unless you want to come in late. Then I'll probably let you in late if you're, because you know, I'm loose like that. But so yeah, that's really it. You'll find my books there. You'll get the consult with me links if you want readings or something like that, and you'll see the blog on there. So I've tried to make everything go to strategicsorcery.net.
Okay, so that's where you can find Jason. Thank you so much, Jason, for being this Thursday with us, and I'll be looking forward with all the listeners seeing you next Thursday. Thank you so much, and see you soon.